Welcome to Saxophone Lesson 1. Okay, so the time has arrived, we're going to actually play it. Now, to begin with, we need to do a bit more theory. We need to talk about pitch. In the previous video, in the previous lesson, we talked about rhythm, how long notes go for in time. Now, we're going to talk about pitch, how high or low notes are, and how that's represented in music on the page. Then after that, we're going to talk about breathing, how best to breathe in and breathe out. And we're also going to talk about how we put the mouthpiece in our mouth and how we tongue. And tonguing is how we separate out individual notes. Awesome. Then we're going to learn our first note, the note G, and do a tone exercise based on G. Tone exercises are exercises based around trying to make our basic sound as good as we can. After that, we've got our first songs we're going to play, although we can't really call them songs because they're all just on G. But we're going to be practicing our tonguing, our breathing, and our note reading as well. And finally, I've got a practice tip for you just to help you in the way you think about practice and how you go about practicing as well. Okay, let's get to it. In this theory lesson, we're going to talk about pitch. In order to indicate higher and lower sounds, we add lines to our music. If a note occurs on a higher space or line than the previous, then its pitch is higher. Okay, so we write in 5 lines of pitch, and these 5 lines are called the staff. We also include a treble clef at the beginning, which indicates what note each line and space will be. Each line and space has a note assigned to it. So the spaces spell face, starting from the lowest space, F, A, C, E. While the lines spell E, G, B, D, F, starting from the lowest line. So we usually remember this by saying, every good boy deserves fruit, which is a good enough sentence, but if you can think of a better one, then that's probably a good thing for you to do. Now, before we play our saxophone, I want to talk to you a little bit about breathing. Now, the normal way we breathe in is by sucking our air in, making our chest rise and making our shoulders rise like this. Now, that's not the most effective way to breathe in. The most effective way to breathe in is to use our diaphragm. Now, our diaphragm is a big muscle underneath the lungs that pulls the lungs open when we breathe in. And if you really squeeze that down, you're going to get as much air as possible into your lungs. Now, if you do this properly, it usually pushes your tummy out too. So what I'd like you to do is put one hand on your tummy, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and on 4 we're going to breathe in, and we're going to try and push out as we do it, and then we're going to breathe out. Here we go. Let's just give this a try. 1, 2, 3, breathe in, and breathe out. And let's just try one more. 1, 2, 3, breathe in, and breathe out. When we start playing our saxophone, I want you to think about breathing in like this. Very deeply, using your diaphragm, and then breathing out very, very hard. Keep this in mind when you do your first tone exercise. So we've put together our saxophone, and we've talked a bit about breathing without it. Now we're going to do some breathing with the saxophone. So what I'd like you to do is finger your first note, and the way we're going to do that is by having our left thumb on the top black button, and our right thumb will be underneath the hook down the bottom there. And if you look at the front of your saxophone, you'll see that there are 3 main keys. There's a top one like that. It may look different on yours, it may be brass, but there are 3 keys here, and we want to put all 3 of those down. That's the new note for this lesson, the note G. Okay, now once we've got those fingers down on G, we are going to try and play the note G. So before we breathed in, we said 1, 2, 3, 4, and we breathed in and then breathed out. This time we're going to do that with the mouthpiece in our mouth and try and get a sound. Now, when we put the mouthpiece in our mouth, there's a few things we need to keep in mind. The first thing is that the saxophone comes to us. We don't go to it. So what I mean is, if it's down here, we don't go down to it like that. We're going to give ourselves neck and back problems. Rather, adjust it up so that we can use our thumbs to just bring it into our mouth like that. We don't want to be going down to it. Okay, cool. So you've adjusted your neck strap, you've got a nice straight back, and we're going to just angle it into our mouth. Now what you need to do is take your bottom lip and put your bottom lip on top of your bottom teeth. Your bottom lip is going to be a cushion that the reed is going to sit on. So I'll show you. And when we blow, we want to make sure that we're not squeezing too tight, but rather we're pushing hard from our diaphragm. So let's give it a go. Put the mouthpiece in your mouth. Cover your bottom teeth with your bottom lip. I'm going to count us in. We're going to try and get a sound. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Deep breath. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Deep breath. Ooh, that note seems to have brought the sun out and the wind. Okay, cool. Now hopefully you're getting a good sound out there. If you're not, keep at it, keep trying, thinking about breathing down here. But the last thing we're going to talk about now is another very, very important foundational concept, and that's tonguing. When we separate notes, we don't stop breathing out. So we don't do this. Rather, we breathe one long note and we use our tongue to touch the reed and stop it for a second like this. So what I'd like you to do is put the mouthpiece in your mouth, put the tip of your tongue on the tip of the reed, and we're going to start by just going ta like that. We're going to go ta. The tongue will be on the reed and it will come off, and we're going to get a nice crisp t sound at the beginning. So put the mouthpiece in your mouth, put the tip of your tongue on the tip of the reed, and here we go. 1, 2, 3. Huge breath. Now, were you really pushing out hard? Did you get a ta sound? Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Okay, so if you're having any trouble with that, I want you to spend some time trying to get it until you can sound pretty much like the way I'm getting it to sound. Okay, last thing before we play some pieces, and that's this. We need to tongue individual notes. So say I want to go da da da. I push out my air the entire time, and I use the tongue to just touch the reed, and that separates the notes. I'll show you. 3, 4. So I'd like you to try the same thing. We're going to breathe in, we're going to tongue the beginning, and then when I go like this, we're going to tongue again. Tongue's going to go on the reed and back off again. Here we go. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Okay, so practice tonguing this week, and when you start playing through the exercises for this lesson, I want you to make sure that you're tonguing clearly and crisply, just like that. The note G. We put the first 3 fingers of our left hand down. G. Lesson 1, tone. So in these videos, we're going to be working on our basic sound, or our tone. And that's the quality of our sound, whether just if we play one note, that one note sounds good. While we're at it, we're going to be focusing on doing proper breathing and proper tonguing as well. And this is the fundamental basis of all of our playing after this. Because if we don't have a good basic sound, it doesn't matter what else we play, it won't sound as good. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to play our first note G, which is our first 3 fingers going down, G. and we're going to play it for 4 seconds or 4 beats. And what we're going to do is breathe in as deeply as we can, breathe down deep using your diaphragm. Go back and watch the breathing video if you're not sure what to do there. And then we're going to breathe out and get rid of all of our air by the end of 4 beats. Now, if you can't get rid of all of your air, do it again and push even harder. If you find that you're running out of air, then you may have to let your air out a bit more slowly so that you can get to the end of 4 beats. But either way, we want to try and get it so we have no air left at the end of 4 beats. Okay, lastly, we need to make sure that we tongue the beginning of the note. And again, if you can't quite remember how to tongue, go back to the tonguing video where I explained it in more detail. But remember, this means that we put that tip of our tongue on the tip of our reed, and when we begin blowing, we go to like that. We make a t sound on the reed. All right, so let's give it a go now. I'm going to count us in, and we're going to play our G. We're going to hold it for about 4 seconds. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Did you have any air left in your lungs? If you did, you got to push harder. I know I did. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. Okay, cool. So what I want you to do is do that 5 times every time you practice. 5 times, because what we're doing is we're developing our breathing, we're thinking about our tonguing, and we're listening to our own sound. And we'll talk more about our own sound as we go on. Okay, good luck with that. Okay, for each of these, we've got a breath mark after the second bar, and that's a little comma. So what we will need to do is breathe out constantly throughout the first 2 bars, and then breathe in at the breath mark, at the little comma, and then we keep breathing out again constantly for the next 2 bars. Now we're going to try and tongue every single note here as well. We're going to tongue the beginning of the first note and tongue the second note. Okay, so let's give it a try. They're all on the note G. 1, 2, 3. First 3 fingers down for G. So let's try number 1. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's really important to try and breathe through that phrase, one long breath through the phrase until we get to that breath mark, and then we breathe in. Okay, let's try and do exactly the same thing on number 2. Now I've got some minims, each one goes for 2 beats. Are you tonguing? Are you making sure you're really clearly using your tongue to touch the reed? It's very important. All right, here we go. Number 2. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's try number 3. Now we're tonguing even more quickly. We're going to be tonguing each crotchet. So every single beat, we've got a tongue. We still want to be breathing out constantly. It's very, very important that we're doing that and only breathing in at the breath mark. Okay, here we go, number 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, going well. Let's move on to number 4. So now we've got different rhythms. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Awesome. All right, number 5. Get ready. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we're trying to make our tongues really light. We're just quickly touching the reed, quickly coming back off. And we're really doing our best to try and make sure we're breathing, remember, through the phrase. Can you get all the way from the first note to the end of the second bar in one breath? It's very important. Okay, number 6. Here we go. Last one. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Awesome. Okay, now there is one last one, number 7, and that's our sight reading exercise. Now I'm not going to play that one for you this lesson. You've got to figure it out yourself. So after you spend some time figuring out how that sounds, when you go to the next lesson, you can listen to me play it, you can play along with me and see how you went. Okay, good luck with those. In these segments, I'm going to be giving you a bit of advice about how to get the most out of your lessons and how to practice the most effectively. So the number one piece of advice I can give you is the more you practice, the better you'll get. It's as simple and as hard as that. If you practice 1 day a week, you'll improve, but you'll improve slowly. If you practice every day of the week, you'll improve very, very, very quickly. I'd say if you can get a minimum of 3 practices a week, you'll be improving at a nice pace. But like I say, the more often you practice, the quicker you'll get to your goal. Now with these lessons, my suggestion is if you can practice every day in a week, you should be able to get through each lesson in a week. And after 10 weeks, you'll be at the end. All right, so another way to think about practicing is that it's not like we're trying to remember facts. It's not so much about up here, although that's very important. It's just as much about training our body. And that's why repeating day after day is so important, because that means that we're going to be reinforcing our lessons. We're going to be going over them again and again. Even 5 minutes on a single day can be effective. So even if you don't have time for an entire practice, maybe you normally practice 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, even if you get 5 minutes in on just one exercise is an effective way to start getting better at your instrument. So what I'd like you to do is go through each of the segments of your lesson and make sure that you can play each one of them as perfectly as possible. Repeat them each time you practice, and if you think you've got them, great. Keep repeating them. Keep reinforcing what you've done. It just means that when you go to the next lesson and you learn the next new concept, you're just going to have a great foundation. So when I see you again, I want you to have practiced your exercises so well that you can play them with your eyes closed. Okay, good luck.